live on the air. I'm Richard Saile.
This is wild.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Lounge Time. I'm your host, Rich Saile, and today we are talking about the defending Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks in the 2026 Offseason grade series that we are continuing. We are nearing halfway through all the teams video-wise, but now by next week we should have 16 out of 32 teams, and we should be projected to be finished with the series by late August, just in time for the preseason. But without further ado, let's get going into the Seattle Seahawks and where they will be on the offseason grade scale that we have right now heading into 2026. So the Super Bowl champions, they lost Super Bowl MVP Kenneth Walker to the Kansas City Chiefs. They lost Clint Kubiak, their offensive coordinator, to be the Las Vegas Raiders head coach. And they lost two key guys in their secondary, Kobe Bryant and Tariq Woolen. So, typical pieces that want more money, that Kenneth Walker was around 27 or 28, so they didn't feel like he was worth a big contract. I get it from their organization standpoint when you drafted Jadarian Price a few months later and you saw Zach Charbonnet. So they're going to run those two backs, split carries, I imagine, going into next season. And then their defense, Mike McDonald, I am done doubting that he will figure out what holes he has to fill. He is one of those guys that no matter the hole on the roster on defense, he will figure it out. He always has ways that he gets creative, as evidenced last year. I'm not going to worry too much about them losing Woolen and Kobe Bryant. I know that there are some that might be a little worried. I'm not as concerned since John Schneider and those guys, they know exactly what to look for when they draft players. They got a tall corner from Arkansas, which we're going to get into a little bit when we get into their draft class. But let's go over the things they did well this offseason. They extended the fifth-year option to Devon Witherspoon. They're currently working on an extension for him. He's part of that cornerback market that's supposed to reset. Him and Christian Gonzalez, notably, both corners that played in the Super Bowl. One for Seattle, one for New England. Because Pat Surtain was the latest to reset the market. And Derek Stingley, I believe, is also, I think he did get extended. I'll have to double check that for when I do the Texans episode. But those guys all looking for a massive payday and looking to reset the market. But what did they do really well as well? They extended Jackson Smith-Njigba, JSN, most deserved because of the season that he had. It does not come as a surprise by many people to do that, so well-deserved there. They also extended Rashid Shaheed, which is a very good move for them because now you keep the receivers that Darnold had. Yes, the running back changes, but those three receivers, they did so well late last year together, went all on the field. Cooper Kupp's working in the middle of those soft zones. Jackson Smith-Njigba can run any route at this point. He could be anywhere on the field, and then Shaheed is the guy that has to get the safety's attention because he is the home run hit. I'm going to use a baseball analogy since we're in baseball season. But then they kind of did, again, they poked in their holes on defense. So, and I'll get to their draft class, and you know what we'll do? We'll get into it right now. I was just looking to see if there was anybody they did pick up in free agency, which nothing too flashy. But again, when you have a lot of your cap allocated towards your defensive standouts, Sam Darnold, you gave a pretty nice contract to last offseason. that's why they don't go out and make big moves. But we'll get to their chances of repeating down the road. But their draft class, I actually really like the start of the draft for Seattle, with Jadarian Price being a good backup running back, because if you're going to do the two-back system like they started to do last year before Charbonnet got hurt and Kenneth Walker took over, then it makes sense to make sure Price has a couple runs where he knows what he's got to do. Charbonnet is going to have a high volume of workload going into next season since he knows the system already. Bud Clark in round 2, how the hell did they get him at the late second round? I don't know how. This is another one where, in my opinion, this is a top 3 steal in the draft. This guy, he is a very damn good safety. So when I look at Kobe Bryant, who was good for them in their scheme, he was. Bud Clark, I really like. This is another really great pick from Seattle, and I think this is almost, I don't want to say it's going to offset completely, but this is a really, really nice pick. He is a very good safety from TCU. I think he's going to be a great fit for the McDonald's scheme too. I really like this pick a lot in round 2. Julian Neal, this is the tall corner from Arkansas. They got to replace Tariq Woolen. He won't replace him fully as far as the production, but he's a very good tall corner for those tall receivers that San Francisco's got. Mike Evans now, but he can run too. There's definitely some work that he's got to have in developing, and I'm not worried at all about Mike McDonald at all with his defensive pieces that he knows he needs to be successful within his scheme. Bo Stevens, the guard from Iowa, good pick. And then the last half of the draft, it's a roll of the dice. I'm not going to get too much into it because some of these guys might be good, but when you're as a stacked roster as Seattle is, this is where, okay, you see how well they are at developing those guys. And maybe one of these guys has a crazy breakout season in a couple years. Maybe they find their way to play meaningful snaps. But again, this team is very solid top to bottom as far as roster-wise. So I would not worry at all with the fact they had a little quiet free agency. They, again, like we talked about the Lions, they focus on keeping their guys that were the key contributors, and they're working on Devon Witherspoon for a long-term extension, but they kept the main pieces that they believe will give them the best chance to repeat. And the extensions, they did a good job nailing those guys that they absolutely need to make a run for next season. So let's go right now into the depth chart. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because they are going to be fine. I'm not worried at all about the skill guys. Where I am worried for Seattle is this: the offensive coordinator situation, because Sam Darnold did really well under Clint Kubiak. Now you have a new offensive coordinator coming in. And this is now, again, Darnold's had a lot of different offensive coordinators because of the fact that he was in San Francisco for a year with Kyle Shanahan, then went to Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell, then had Clint Kubiak last season, and now he's got a new offensive coordinator coming in. So I will say this: I would expect regression from how explosive they were offensively, because I don't think they're going to be that level of explosive, because with a new offensive coordinator, he's going to have his system that he wants to do, and they might be a different team this year from how they play. Not necessarily a bad thing. It's just the nature of when you lose key pieces that have helped you win a championship and they go on to take better jobs, or they go get more money if you're a player. In this case, Clint Kubiak got a very good head coaching offer from the Raiders, and now you have a new offensive coordinator in the fold. I'll get the name for you guys in just a moment. I'm actually going to get it right now, but I do not worry about the main pieces on the offense like JSN. I don't think they're going to be that bad this season. I don't think Shaheed's going to be bad. I don't think Cooper Kupp's going to be bad. I think the offensive line is still very good. I just worry a little bit with Darnold's not going to have a crazy year like he did last year. He's not. I think now with teams getting a full year of tape, And with the new system that Brian Fleury, I hope I'm saying his name right, Brian Fleury, is the new offensive coordinator for Seattle. So now, again, he's going to have to develop his own system, and they're going to look at what Darnold was really well with last year, and that footage from last year is all on tape where defensive coordinators are going to study, okay, where did Sam struggle last year, and what did he do well, and how do we get him from what he did not do well last year and put that on film to see what works and what doesn't work. And I think that's where you're going to see some regression with Darnold. I don't think the running game is going to be as strong as well because Charbonnet and Price are good running backs. I think they'll be solid. I don't think you're going to see 2025 Kenneth Walker in the playoffs. I don't think you're going to see that because Kenneth Walker is a different type of style of running back. He's more of a patient runner that will wait for the hole to open up and then gash you that way. I don't see it with this running back group for 2026. The X factor in this offense, and I didn't even mention him, is Torrey Horton. Because if he can get going, and we saw Jake Bobo catch a couple touchdowns as well, this is a very good receiver room that you will see guys make plays. Like, they are deep. They're 5 deep at good receivers. So Arroyo and Barner, good tight ends, and Barner had a nice leap toward the end of the season as far as his role in the offense as well. But this offensive line is still really good. I don't worry about them except for the regression of Darnold and that running game, which I don't think are going to be as good as they were last year. This defense, listen, they're going to be fine. They're still going to be a top 10 defense. They might be top 5, depending on who you want to stack them up against. But you know what? I'll pencil them in top 5 for now. I have to see who else I'm putting in that conversation. I have a few teams that jump out that I'm about to do next week. The Broncos, the Texans immediately come to mind that I would argue are consensusly top 5. Seattle's right in that conversation. But this defensive line is really good. Leonard Williams, Jaron Reed, Byron Murphy, DeMarcus Lawrence, really, really good guys. Williams and Lawrence are getting up there in age. They could have a dip in production, but they've been good veterans to help teach the young guys what to do. They got their championships. Ernest Jones is still one of the best middle linebackers in all of football. Uchenna Nwosu's good. The guy I'm hearing could be a breakout candidate is Derek Hall. And I've heard he might be the guy now that could make a big leap. Now, Dante Fowler, he's been around the league too a little bit. He's going to be a nice rotational pass rusher to give one of those guys a bit of a break. But Derek Hall is a guy that could have a breakout year. So they're deep at edge. They are deep among the defensive front. And this secondary is still really good. I didn't even mention one of the middle linebackers I think that's going to be a fit in the system, depending on where they can fit him in, is Chris Paul Jr. from Ole Miss. Last year, when I looked at the Rams, I was like, wow, they got him. They let him go, and he ended up signing with Seattle in that gap in between last year and this year. If they can find a way to get him in, he is a very good middle linebacker. Very good middle linebacker that I think will get playing time. Maybe not this season, but depending on if they can find a role for him, he's going to be a good player. He was one of my favorite players in the last draft that happened. But this secondary is still really, really good. Witherspoon, Julian Love, Bud Clark now is in the fold. Josh Jobe, Nick Amanawari, who can play slot corner. He can play deep safety. He's that chess piece that can line up anywhere in Mike Macdonald's scheme. This is still a really good unit. And I know there's another Ohio State cornerback in here, Igbinohe. I can't even pronounce his name. I'm trying my best. But this is still a really damn good defense. Once again, and they're a top 5 unit. They're going to be fine. There's not going to be a crazy amount of regression. Slight regression, maybe, because now, again, you've got the league that sees what Mike Macdonald's defense is good at, especially he tries to attack blocking schemes. So now, offensive line coaches, you better figure out what you're going to do when Mike Macdonald tries to stress you with 4 to 5 defenders across the line. That's your issue because he will attack blocking schemes, as he did his time in Baltimore, his time in Michigan, and his 2 years in Seattle. So, The biggest question everybody wants to know is, did Seattle do enough to repeat? And will they have a hangover? I don't think they're going to have that bad of a hangover. Actually, you know what? I know they won't have that bad of a hangover. Because they have the architect in building the defense in McDonald. He knows his pieces. He knows where his strong position groups are. He knows what his defense did well last year. So this defense is still really good. Once again, the offense would be my one concern with regression because of a new offensive coordinator. I think it's fair to say this. Darnold will have regression. He's going to have a bit of a down year from last year. I believe that's fair to say. In all seriousness, this receiving group is really good still. They know their roles. The offensive line is still solid again. But with a full year of everybody looking you on tape, Darnold's weakness has been pressure. I believe you got the Rams now. You've got, if the Niners can find a way to stay healthy, they have a decent front four. And with the first place schedule in the NFC, and again, Philly's up there. You've got Chicago, who's not really great with pressure, but Dennis Allen found a way to pressure Matthew Stafford in the playoff game. So that's that outlier. And then, depending on the AFC West, Denver, Kansas City. The Chargers can even get pressure. I believe they play that whole division. We'll go to the schedule in just a little bit, but did they do enough? Yeah. They have a very good team that gives them a great shot to repeat. Do I think they will? They have an argument to. I don't believe so at this moment. When I get to preseason picks, my mind will change probably. Right now, though, if I'm doing a power ranking system, I have Seattle in the top 3 to 5. Probably number 2, truthfully, behind the Rams. Because the Rams got 2 big defensive pieces. Seattle was right there, but again, when you're looking at the offseason, you got to look at what you subtracted and what they added. And the way that the Rams and Seattle, all 3 games were close. All 3 were down on the wire. You got to look at those 2 as head and shoulders now, the top 2 teams, at least in power rankings for now. And then I have other teams 3 to 5. But I'm going to wait on that till I get preseason picks. I believe this team will not have a hangover. They're going to be a playoff team. I'm not worried at all. I'm not confident in this group. This is a good. I'm very confident this is a playoff team. I'm not worried at all about regression. I'm not worried about a hangover with this group. They're a playoff team. They're in the NFC Elite. They did enough to where their roster is good enough to be a repeat. Now let's get to the schedule for Seattle. Because they do play the AFC West. Okay, so let's look at where Seattle will be record-wise, where I would expect. Banner night, home against New England. I'm telling you as a New England fan, we're going to lose this game because we always lose in that stadium. And the last time we won was damn near 20 years ago. But I'm going to save all that for the game preview in September when we do that, or late August, depending on when I want to record it. But I'll give you a win against New England at home. At Arizona, at Washington, wins. Home for the Chargers, I'm giving you a win. So this schedule, hot start. You can expect it. 4-0 off the rip between New England, at Arizona, at Washington, home for the Chargers. Those are all wins. Home for the Niners. They're going to beat the Niners. I've been down on that team. Go watch that episode if you haven't. It's one of the most viewed offseason great episodes yet. 5-0, I've got Seattle at Denver on a Thursday night. Loss number 1 because this team, Denver, has the defense to match with them and the altitude, short week. This is where you would expect the first loss. No shame, though, losing at Denver. Home for the Chiefs. That's a win because you give Mike McDonald 10 days to prepare for Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. That's going to be a game where they have the advantage, and I like Seattle to beat Kansas City. Home for Chicago. So you get 3 back-to-back games. But they're really good at home, too. I'm going to say that they lose to Chicago. Ben Johnson has a way that he will beat the Bears. There's always one loss you go, okay, we didn't expect them to lose there. This is going to be one I think that's a coin flip, but I'm going to give Chicago the win at Seattle because I think there's going to be that one game where you go, how did they lose that game? So I'm going to give Chicago the win at Seattle. So we're looking at now, and they didn't have their bye week yet. So we're looking at 6-2. Still really solid. Home of the Cardinals at Vegas wins. So you're 8-2 going into the bye week. You're fine. At the 49ers on Sunday, I really think this could be a loss potentially. I'm going to say that they beat the Niners because I'm not sold on what the Niners did. 9-2. Home of the Cowboys. Win. On a Monday night? Come on. Please. Home for the Giants. Win. At the Eagles. And this is a 5 o'clock game on a Saturday in Philly, cross country. That's a loss. So we're looking at now, we said 8-2 into the bye week. We're going to say 11-3. They will split with the Rams. So 13-4. Carolina is a little better, but I believe they're still better than Carolina. That's the only other game they could trip up because it is a road game, cross country again. I look at this schedule. I see some losses that they will have. 14-3 last year. They're going to still be good again at 13-4. The two games that will decide where they match up from being a number 1 seed or a 5 seed will be the Rams games in 16 and 18. The week 16, week 18. So, which leads me to my grade. Where do I have Seattle at? I have them at a B. They prioritize the extensions of JSN, Shaheed. They're working on Devon Witherspoon now. Pluses. Got that. Really nice early draft. The later rounds, it's kind of a crapshoot roll of the dice. What they lost, though, some key pieces, but they didn't have a bad loss in free agency or trade. So that is important to note. So really little minuses, not many positives. So right in the middle. I'm going with a B. So the Seattle Seahawks will land at a B on the 2026 offseason grades for me. That is today's episode of 2026 offseason grades. Make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so that way you guys can get all the latest content for the 2026 offseason grades right in time until late August when the preseason episode will be out where I give my Super Bowl prediction and my playoff teams. You can also follow me at LoungeTimePod on X. Yes, I will tweet for when the NFL season starts. Do not worry. I know I missed it with a big NBA signing yesterday afternoon, but there were other plans I had at the time. But don't worry, I will be tweeting for the NFL season. And if you have a question for the show, I will answer it. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Lounge Time. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And I will see you guys for the next episode of 2026 Offseason Grades.